Oh, Fire Emblem and their child soldiers. Crazy to think that we have characters in this game being ingrained to kill people at as young as 12. Pfft, good thing that's just a crazy fantasy thing that never actually happens in real life.
Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps, known as JROTC, is one of the largest character development and citizenship programs for youth in the United States.
I feel like age in Fire Emblem is something that gets brought up a lot, be it making fun of the plethora of child soldiers or looking at some uncomfortable romances. But most characters don't actually have canonical ages. It wasn't until 3 Houses that a whole cast had one, unless you count the unused data in Echoes, which was never shown to the player. As such, a lot of the time you just kinda had to guess, is Erica 17 or 20? I don't know. I feel like you could just throw a dart at a board and you'd be close to correct. But Thracia, for whatever reason, has canonical ages for about 90% of its cast, and in it, we see that most of the cast is made up of adults, a rarity in JRPGs, but there is one character who is a whopping 12 years old. So today, let's look at Fire Emblem's canonically youngest child soldier, and dive into the mystery of Sara. Sara's existence is actually foreshadowed very early in FE5, after Leaf's, 3rd or 4th mom gets turned into a stone by Veld. Leaf wants to do something that can help her, but his tactician August remarks that the only way to undo the stone spell is the Kia staff, and there's a huge problem with that. Beyond just needing to find the staff itself, it can only be used by Manfroy's bloodline, and given how Manfroy is the leader of the continent's resident Satan cult, he won't be of any help. So the only way Leaf can save a Vale is if Manfroy had children. But look at him. You're telling me this man fucked? That's impossible. There's no way he had children. Sara first shows up on chapter 16, where she's being kept in a devil cult monastery by a bishop named Reincock. Like any child, she complains about how boring it is to stand around all day, and asks when her grandfather is returning, to which Reincock reveals to the player her grandfather is Manfroy. This is a huge bombshell for FE4 fans to drop casually. We now have canonical proof that Manfroy fucked, and I personally do not enjoy having that information. From there, she, again like any child, gets bored and kinda just wanders off from her adult supervision. It's like me when I was a 6-year-old in Target, except the Target is a hell forest inhabited by cultists. So, pretty close to Target, actually. Once she's out, she starts to hear a voice calling out to her for help, so she starts warping around the forest until she eventually wanders to the main lord of the game, Leaf. At first, he's trying to get rid of her, as Leaf has the sense that a random little girl in the middle of the woods is not someone he should be getting help from. However, she shows some mysterious powers by being able to fully understand all of Leaf's life story without ever meeting him, and saying that they have a kinship in the fact that they have dead parents. She reveals that her mother passed away when she was young, and her father was murdered by her grandfather for falling in love with her mother. Now, we don't have time to unpack all of that right now, but the main thing is Leaf realizes maybe this little girl is a bit more important than he realizes, so he agrees to let her help him out on his quest. Sara also has a conversation with Salem in her join map, where the ex-cultist recognizes her as Manfroy's granddaughter, though given that he was a low-ranking bishop, she doesn't know who he is. Salem then pieces together that since Sara is Manfroy's granddaughter, she can use the Kia staff and save a Vale. Though the entire time Salem is realizing this, Sara kinda just ignores him and wanders off. The scene mostly serves as a method to remind the player about the Kia staff, so they make sure to keep Sara alive. Thracia loves to use natural interactions to give hints in tutorials, rather than have a generic hint or tutorial menu. The scene on its own doesn't do much, but combined with things like Lithis being the capture tutorial or Karen explaining rescuing, it helps integrate gameplay and story in a way Effie doesn't often do, though it is something Thracia specifically is really good at. Sara's introduction establishes her character a bit. She's a child prone to boredom and doing her own thing, but she also has this air of mystery to her. Like, why did Manfroy kill her dad? Was he afraid of his bloodline betraying him and using the Kia staff? If so, why did he have kids in the first place? Maybe it was because her mother married someone out of the Lopter cult, so Manfroy didn't approve of her union because he hates those that scorn the Lopterian followers? Sara's character in and of itself might not have too much, but the implications of her existence leads to all kinds of theory crafting about the main villains of FE4, which can be fun to think about. A point in FE4's plot was about how the Lopter cult was often forced into their suffering from birth, so seeing people like Sara's dad and Sara herself, who don't really seem like bad people, helps enforce that point. And while Sara doesn't have much character due to her limited dialogue, one thing we can see is that she has a crippling fear of loneliness. In the A route of the game, the bishop that she's staying with says she's weird, even going so far to say she's touched in the head, making it clear he never really wants to interact with her. And in B route, Reinkock just keeps trying to get her to stay isolated in her chambers, keeping her away from anyone she could potentially talk to. And her death quote is just her last breath lamenting her loneliness, and given the life she seems to lead, it's no doubt she doesn't have any friends or loved ones. It's not the most elaborated on trait, but it's definitely there. Like a lot of Thracian characters, the groundwork of the character is solid, and it's up to the player to kinda make up the details and how they work. And before we move on to her ending, I want to talk about her combat prowess. This girl is 12 years old and is one of the most powerful units in the entire game. She has an 80% growth rate in all of her relevant stats, a low level combined with the Paragon skill, meaning she gets double XP and is leveling up pretty much every fight. She also promotes to a Sage, meaning she gets +5 at least to all of her relevant stats in a game where every stat caps at 20. She gets Adept, allowing her to potentially attack 4 times in one combat, and Wrath, giving her an automatic crit if she's ever attacked. And her low HP, her one weakness, is almost made moot by her Miracle skill, which gives her between 30 to 60% chance of making her immune to a fatal blow. This girl is busted. Because of this, and the fact that she's recruited on both routes of FE5, means pretty much every Thracian player uses her every single time they play the game. She's like Pent, or Har, or Dussel, a late game unit that gets slapped into pretty much every player's party. Before we get to the end of the video, I would like to thank my patrons, including Adebayo Thompson, Andrew Crockett, Benz Again, Dr. McBackstab, Fire Emblem Lord, Follow Up Into the North Star on Twitch, Gangrel Elizabeth, Great Riek, Hell on Heelys, Despacito 2, Keithan, Lightning Bolt, Nevrix the Tourmaline Project Creator, Ranger Man Sam, Ryan Walter, Shen Lu, Space1255, Steph D, Tato, Your Girl Owen, Auntie Ginger, Renchendo11, Drew Hack, Goo Goo Gaga, Cornelia Milkers 92, Max the Knife, and Upscale Furry Trash. Normally I have a big Patreon bit, but it didn't feel right to spend 2 minutes on Patreon when the video was barely 10 minutes long. So thank you everyone who gives me money, and if you haven't given me money yet, why not? After her introduction, Sara only shows up one more time when Leaf finds the Kia staff, revealing to Leaf that she's Manfroy's granddaughter and she can wield it. Apparently Salem never once said who Sara was, so Leaf carried around a child for almost a year without ever knowing anything about her. After that, her ending states that Leaf gave her sanctuary, and she lived a humble yet spiritually fulfilling life. That ending is kinda unique among FE women, I feel. A lot of women in Fire Emblem's endings basically boil down to either getting married or starting an orphanage, so a woman becoming spiritually rich is kinda neat. All in all, there really isn't too much to Sara, but like with most Thracian characters, she leaves a solid impression for the limited time she has available. I think her main boon is the circumstances around her. The little bit she shows about the Lapter cult is interesting lore stuff, and the mystery around her adds to the intrigue of her character. So when you play Thracia, remember, you're not using a child soldier, you're helping a neglected child find friends. It's completely justifiable and completely recommended. I would like to thank you all for making it to the end of another character analysis video. Thracia fans are eating good recently. FE5 no capture, and now a Sara video. A lot of Thracian love. Speaking of Thracian love, thanks to Green Brigand, my friend and editor who looks over my scripts and makes sure that they aren't stupid. Thracia's his favorite game in the series, so he is feasting. If you enjoyed the video, please consider joining the Discord server. You're seeing stuff from it right now. We like to have fun there. I think it's a pretty great time. Also, feel free to like the video, comment on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and please don't go to your local elementary school trying to recruit soldiers. Trust me, I tried it once, it doesn't work. Until next time.